Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to focus on one of the most important academic writing skills you will ever develop in college, and that is writing a strong thesis statement. Many students think essays are mostly about grammar, length, or finding sources, but experienced writers understand something deeper. The real power of an essay comes from its thesis statement. Why? Well, because the thesis statement controls everything. It controls the organization, it controls the argument, and it controls the direction of the body paragraphs. So, in many ways, the thesis statement acts like the brain of the essay. Every paragraph receives instructions from it. So, today, we're going to learn not only what a thesis statement is, but how to build one that gives your essay structure, clarity, and purpose. To understand why thesis statements matter so much, imagine trying to build a skyscraper without a blueprint. Some workers might start laying bricks, others might install windows, someone else may begin painting walls, but eventually confusion takes over because nobody knows what the final structure is supposed to look like. Essay work in a similar way. When students begin writing without a thesis statement, paragraphs often become disconnected, repetitive, and unfocused. That is because the essay has no structural center holding everything together. This is why strong writers begin by building the thesis statement first. So, before we learn how to write a great thesis statement, we first need to understand exactly what a thesis statement really does. A thesis statement is the central argument or controlling idea of an essay. But strong thesis statements do more than announce a topic. They guide the entire structure of the paper. Think about it like a GPS in your car. A GPS does not simply tell you where you are, it tells you where you are going and how to get there. So, a strong thesis statement does the same thing for readers. It introduces the topic, takes a clear position, and previews the major points that will later become body paragraphs. And that last part is extremely important. In fact, one of the strongest ways to organize a college essay is by using a thesis statement that introduces three major supporting ideas. This type of thesis statement is extremely effective because it automatically creates organization. Let's look at this thesis statement. Social media negatively affects college students because it reduces concentration, increases anxiety, and weakens face-to-face communication. Notice what the writer does here. First, the thesis presents the topic, which is social media. Then, it takes a position, which is social media negatively affects students. But most importantly, it previews three supporting points, which are reduced concentration, increased anxiety, and weakened communication. So those three elements become the body paragraph. Think of this structure like a movie trailer. A trailer previews the major scenes before the movie begins. Similarly, the thesis statement previews the major discussions before the essay develops them. Consequently, readers immediately understand what the paper will argue, how the essay will be organized, and what ideas matter most. Now that we understand how this structure works, let's look at why it makes writing easier for students. One major reason students struggle with essays is because their writing begins to wander. Ideas feel disconnected, paragraphs lose focus, and arguments become repetitive. The three-part thesis helps solve this problem because it creates organization automatically. Think of thesis like the train racks, right? Once the tracks are placed correctly, the train knows exactly where to go. Each body paragraph follows one track from the thesis statement. Instead of wondering what to discuss next, the writer already has a clear organizational plan. And once students understand this structure, it becomes much easier to recognize the difference between weak thesis statements and strong ones. Let's compare a weak thesis statement with a stronger one. The first example says, exercise is important. Technically, this is a statement, but it creates several problems. Exercise is important. Important how? For whom? Why? The thesis is too vague to guide an essay effectively. Now, let's look at the revised version. Regular exercise improves mental health, increases energy levels, and reduces stress among college students. The writer identifies those three major elements: mental health, energy levels, and stress reduction. Those three elements are going to become the body paragraphs. Notice how the essay suddenly gains structure and direction. This is the difference between simply introducing a topic and building a roadmap for an essay. And once writers understand this roadmap concept, they can begin creating even more sophisticated thesis statements. Strong college writing often goes beyond simple statements. Instead of presenting ideas in a flat or obvious way, advanced writers create complexity and tension between ideas. One powerful strategy is using subordinating clauses such as although, because, while. Let's look at this example. Although social media connects people globally, it also increases loneliness, distraction, and misinformation. Notice what happens in this example. The writer acknowledges one side of the issue: social media connects people globally. But then the thesis pivots towards the main argument. It also creates serious problems. This immediately makes the essay sound more analytical and mature. Now, while longer thesis statements can sound sophisticated, students often wonder whether every thesis needs to be highly developed. The answer is no. Not every thesis statement needs to be long. Some essays actually benefit from concise and direct thesis statements. For example, fast food advertising targets children. This thesis is short, but it still presents a clear argument. However, more advanced essays often require more development. Notice how the second example introduces. Although fast food companies claim to support healthy lifestyle, their advertisements continue targeting children through colorful marketing, emotional manipulation, and digital media. Notice how this second example introduces complexity, argument, and three supporting points. The longer thesis statement immediately creates a strong organizational structure for this essay. So the goal is not necessarily length. The real goal is clarity, focus, and structure. So we want to have those three elements, but we want them not because we want the sentence to be long. We want them because the real goal is clarity, focus, and structure. One of the most important elements that we need to keep in mind is that excellent thesis statements rarely appear perfectly on the first try. Strong writers revise repeatedly. They narrow ideas, clarify wording, strengthen arguments, improve organization. Think of revision like sharpening a knife. The first version may work, but every revision makes the thesis sharper and more precise. And the sharper the thesis becomes, the stronger the essay becomes. Let's review another thesis statement. Online learning has advantages and disadvantages. Well, the thesis is clearly too broad and lacks focus and direction. Readers still do not know what the essay will actually argue. Now let's read the revised thesis statement. Online learning benefits students through flexibility, accessibility, and self-paced instruction. The improved thesis actually creates organization. We can clearly see that Body 1 will discuss flexibility, Body 2 will discuss about accessibility, and Body 3 will address the issue of self-paced instruction. So notice how the thesis now controls the structure of the essay. This is exactly what strong academic writing should do. At this point, we can begin seeing the bigger picture. The best thesis statement do much more than introduce a topic. They organize the essay. They guide the reader, preview body paragraphs, and create a clear argumentative direction. In many ways, the thesis acts like the architectural blueprint, the GPS, and the skeleton of the essay all at once. Today, my friends, we learned that thesis statements are not simply introduction sentences. They are the structural foundation of academic writing. A strong thesis statement controls organization, clarity, argument, and development. Remember, when the thesis is weak, the essay struggles. But when the thesis clearly previews the body paragraphs and establishes a strong direction, the entire paper becomes easier to write and easier to understand. So, before beginning your next essay, challenge your strength to spend extra time developing your thesis statement, because one strong sentence can truly transform your entire essay. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing the powerful thesis statements you will create.